hi, Jenna.
Well, hi, Shelby.
And welcome back to Miss Willow's Book Club.
Oh, that was a sad little chink.
I know. We used to have such good ones.
That's because we use the big glasses.
That is very true. Yeah. Crystal.
The crystal goblets. They make a really nice ding.
They do. It used to be like our signature sound.
I know. Well, I could always pour these into that.
We could do that. We are drinking mimosas today.
We are. Happy St. Patty's Day for us today.
Yeah. Pumped. Yes. Better vibes this year.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. If I've ever talked about work before here, I have a lot of coworkers who are in Ireland, and one of my teammates on Thursday did a St. Patty's Day quiz. The one of the ones that lives in Ireland gave a little St. Patty's Day quiz to everybody.
Oh my gosh.
And it was pretty hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. So it really got me in the spirit for the weekend.
Oh, I love it. That's why I wore green today too.
So, I had green on. I switched, but that's okay.
That looks good on you. I love it. Well, I am so excited to talk today. I have been so excited to talk about this since it came out. What are we talking about today?
Onyx Storm, baby.
Oh, yes. And we both got physical copies.
Yes, it was kind of a hot mess right when they first came out because Amazon kept canceling orders, or not even canceling them. They wouldn't say anything.
Yes.
They just all of a sudden would have no projected delivery date. Mm-hmm. And mine had been one of those too. And so then I kind of frantically was running around the morning of trying to grab one because I didn't know what, of course, they put this frantic capitalistic whatever on it.
Oh my gosh.
But I went to Barnes and Noble. They had no more. I went at 7:30 a.m. They had no copies at all. Went to Target. Target had no copies at all. And then I finally Walmart, and they had 2 copies, and I got both of them.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it was crazy. And then my Amazon one came 4 days later. I'm like, okay, well, so I stressed for nothing, but whatever.
But at least you got it on the day it came out. Did you start reading it on the day it came out?
I don't remember. I think that I had a little more self-control this time. And last time when Iron Flame came out, I literally think I read it in 24 hours. I read it so fast. And
I think you did too.
Went back and reread it. And I'm pretty sure I read Onyx Storm over the span of a week.
I did too, yeah.
So spread it out. Was that the same for you?
Because I was just enjoying it. I was just enjoying the vibes. So I had this same experience. So my Amazon was also saying not going to be delivered, and I ended up being able to cancel it. I had to talk to the Amazon staff in order to actually cancel the order. Mm-hmm. I was at Target at 6:45 in the morning.
Crazy.
There were 52 people in line.
Jeez.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to be early.
Right.
Was not. Everybody was waiting for it. They had 4 of the Target
special
editions.
Edition. Yeah.
And then they had only a handful of the other ones. And I got the last one.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I don't really know anyone who got the Target edition for how many were supposedly out there. And I know a lot of people who tried.
I have one friend who got one.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was going to be that nuts, I guess. That's part of why I tried Target. I was there at 7:30. I was there bloody early. And they're like, oh yeah, you're not even close. There wasn't even, everybody had already cleared out. That's how late I was comparatively.
Right. I mean, because everybody was in and out. We're grabbing the books and we're going.
Yeah. So that was
oh my gosh.
Wild. But we got them.
We got them. Thank goodness. Spoiler free. What did you rate this?
I still gave it 5 stars. I just love the vibe of this series.
Me too.
We've talked about it with Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. None of them are perfect books. I don't expect them to be. I have a good time. Mm-hmm. It's a great vibe. I laugh. I cry.
Same.
It's wonderful. What about you?
Literally same. So I gave it infinity. Yeah. This is one of my favorite books I've ever read. And we were talking about this last episode that I love diving into different series because the more that you get to know the characters and the plot and the world that you're in, it just feels so much more personable, I guess. I'm just so connected to it. And so this one, I loved it so much. I laughed, I cried. I was very excited about some theories that were proven and then surprised by others that weren't.
Yes. For sure. I know there was a couple of them that we nailed. There's one in particular we'll talk about when we get into spoilers. So I was like, Shelby knew it. And as soon as I read that line, I was like, oh my God, Shelby knew
Although
this.
I have other theories if it's the same one I'm thinking of.
No, yeah, we're going to find out. We're going to find out when we get into spoilers.
I'm so pumped. Yeah, this was a really good vibe. I feel obviously in this episode, we're going to have spoilers for the entire series up to this point. But yeah, I had such a good time with it. I will. So
still trying to keep it mostly spoiler free for specifically Onyx Storm, but like assume that you've read Iron Flame. So minor Iron Flame spoilers here. There still was a little bit of the like forced yearning in the beginning of this book in the same way there was in Iron Flame. Did you like it better or worse than how it was done in Iron Flame?
I think I liked it better this time because it didn't last half the book.
I totally agree. I thought the same thing because it felt longer and more, I don't know. I don't want to say forced, but in the first book, like it was more annoying in Iron Flame, and I liked it how it was done better here.
I think though in Iron Flame, because one of your least liked tropes is the miscommunication trope.
Yeah, I don't love that.
And there was a lot of that in Iron Flame.
Yeah, that's true.
Where in this one, it was more of like, or it was less of a miscommunication trope and more of like a, we're going to try to figure it out spoiler free. Yeah. I was like, how do I say this without spoilers? Because
maybe it's just time for spoilers.
You know what? Let's freaking get into it.
Spoilers. If you have not read all 3 books that are out in the Empyrean series, you have not read Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and Onyx Storm, go read them. Come back and join us later.
And as always, where to find us on socials. We are Miss Willa's Book Club Pod on TikTok and Instagram. And our Gmail is misswillasbookclub@gmail.com if you guys have any inquiries. So, heck yes. Let's start at the beginning. So I guess let's start at the end of Iron Flame. So we ended off where Xaden had turned, or he had pulled from the ground, and now he is showing signs of being a villain.
Right. Yes. But his eyes like recovered pretty quickly because he's just an initiate at the beginning of it, at least.
Yeah. And I was very excited to see, like, we had lots of questions. And so I was very excited to see, like, how is that going to progress or regress at some points? Like, it was different than I thought it was going to be. And I feel like we learned a lot.
How was it different?
I guess because I knew that there were the levels to the venom, but I didn't think it was going to be so gradual. Like, I thought since he had turned, he was going to move really quickly through the ranks, but that was not the case at all. Like, you can regress, you can progress. Like, it was very different than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. It's so hard because since obviously most of this book is from Violet's point of view, I feel like we still know so little about his relationship with Sigel besides that she's pissed at him.
Yes.
And like he's still flying on her, but they aren't talking and all these things. And so kind of to your point of being like a gradual shift towards, I mean, until the very end of the book when it's obvious that like, okay, he has moved into the next stage of being like a whatever, like a sim or whatever. But it was so hard because since we don't see his point of view or inside Sigel's head at all yet, then we don't really know how much that relationship has changed as a result of him doing this. Because even when he had gone however many days it was, I mean, it was months, right, without pulling from the ground. And
it was like 72 days or something.
Yeah. I mean, it was a long time. And even with that, it still didn't seem like his relationship with Sigel was any better during that time.
Agreed.
So that was wild to me. And like Taryn's voice towards him being like, yeah, no, the dark one. Yeah, fuck
he like completely changed his name. I was like, you're only calling him the dark one now?
Yes.
That was very intentional.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And it was kind of sad to feel like Sigel and Taryn were like kind of mad at each other a little bit too.
They were fighting too.
It was so sad.
That was so sad.
Yeah.
Well, especially because, so we find out later, but there are different communication styles between the dragons. And like we find out in the very beginning of the book when I think it was, they were like all in this battle. And then was it Riddick I think Aotrim cut off communication with the Horde. And so they were just talking with each other. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that they could do that. And Taryn was pissed. And he was like, how dare you cut us off during battle? Like, even if you're having a fight with your rider, like, that's uncool. I can't believe that. So we know that they can cut off communication.
Well, it sounds, I guess I took that as like intentional in the same way that Xaden sometimes closes the door, for lack of better words.
Yes.
And so I guess I got the sense that it wasn't like how Andarna and the other Irids like physically make or break bonds to be able to talk. It was more intentional. closing that door and I'm just not talking to you.
Yep.
It's like, talk to the hand. Like I thought it was one of those kind of moments.
Yes. Where like in my head, in the first 2 books, I was really picturing like they have like this constant communication and like I wasn't really picturing that they could like cut it off. So maybe it just solidified it for me that like there was that opportunity to cut off communication.
Oh, I guess I had assumed they could only because even in Fourth Wing, when Xaden is trying to teach Violet how to shield.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I was imagining it like that. Like that they were like shielding within. So maybe it naturally would otherwise be a fairly free flowing, but they can choose
you can like
to shield
shut the vault door.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I also like in the very beginning, there was so much talk on social media about how lost everybody was. Did you feel that way?
I mean, the only thing that I felt particularly lost is Llewellyn.
I'm like, it's a person, place, and a thing.
A person, place, and a thing.
It's a whole noun.
It is a whole noun. Fuck me, I have no idea who that was.
Literally same.
Besides that, yeah, everybody talked about being so confused. I'm like, it literally picked up exactly where Iron Flame left off. I don't know.
Literally, exactly.
I was not that confused.
Yes.
That was the only piece where I'm like, I don't necessarily remember this person. And I will say there was a lot of names, and because more in this book than the others, I feel like Rebecca goes back and forth between using their first name or their last name, so it's a little bit more interchangeable here, which also made it a little bit more confusing because then there's like multiple names for every person. But I don't know. I mean, I felt like generally speaking, but maybe it's just because I had listened to a little bit of our Iron Flame episode before I read it, and so I was reminded of like where things left off and who was doing what, and what we know about who, and all that jazz. I don't know. What about you? Were you lost?
Maybe a little bit, but I was like, it's the first 100 pages of a fantasy book. Of course, you should be a little bit lost.
I totally agree. That's just par for the course. If you're reading fantasy, you have to expect to be a little lost and just kind of like get through the world building.
Right. It was kind of funny. So we were talking about it at book club and everybody talked about the last name situation. And I was like, in military fashion though, like when you're in battle and you are like on the clock per se, it's like you are like your last name is used, not your first name. And like Rebecca Yarros has actually written a lot of military romances.
Wasn't he military?
Yeah, I believe so. And so I was like, oh yeah, it's par for the course. Like I grew up with that. So I was like, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was bad to be using their last names. I think it's just they didn't use them as much in the first 2 books. So I think it probably took people a little bit to like connect the dots.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's like pretty common in that atmosphere to use last names. Probably also because, I mean, since it's a book, we don't have this, but in real life, there's more overlap with first names than last names.
Yeah.
So I think that probably also,
absolutely.
Like, I didn't think that was that weird. It was just more names to think about.
Exactly. In this book, so we've talked about in our previous episodes that it was really hard to decipher between like Riddick and Sawyer and some other characters. How did you feel in this book about it?
Oh, they were way more distinct in my mind in this, especially I think that Riddick really like rose to the top for everyone's favorite character in this series. So this chapter from his POV with his dragon, just vibing out. I'm like, I keep seeing so many like reels or TikToks or whatever about like, oh, like the playlist that Riddick is playing while
Yes.
I'm dying. I loved that. So that was really distinct. And I also feel like the way that she had Sawyer go through his struggle of like coming to terms with having like lost a leg, but like still embodying the like attitude of a rider and having Violet almost be a really good inspiration of like, I don't know, like quiet confidence for that.
Yeah. And I felt like she was a really good person to like, sometimes you need friends to just be like, all right, we're snapping out of it. Like, let's go. You've had enough time to like be sad. Like, let's get out of it. Let's go do something.
Yes.
And so I felt like played a really big role in like trying to get him out of it too.
Yeah. So and trying to get him out of his head of being like, if your dragon is willing to like give you a saddle or shrink a little lower to get on, why does that matter? Like mine does that for me, right? Like the whole point is that this is your relationship with your dragon. Exactly. Like you can't be self-conscious over what everyone else thinks about it. And that's why I say I think it was a fun growth moment for her because in Fourth Wing, she really had like such a hard mental time thinking about like, oh, well, Taryn is so big and badass and like he shouldn't have to help me stay in my seat. And so to see her be able to pass along those learnings to Sawyer and be like, you guys dealt with it with me. Why shouldn't you be okay with it for you?
Right. Like, it was a really big hurdle that they had to get over. And I'm really hoping it just, like, made them closer at the end.
I know.
Like, oh.
He's a sweetie.
He was one of the moments, throughout the whole book, Riddick and Atrum were just, like, so funny.
They're
like,
so funny.
Watching them play in the sand and throw sand at each other, I was like, you goofballs. Like, what in the world? It was so funny.
They brought a lot of good humor to, like, very serious situations. Oh my God, when I thought that Riddick got stabbed.
Oh my God.
When they're on the islands,
sobbing.
When they're on the islands and they're like in the kitchen after they're, I don't know, they're like hosts are kind of trying to poison them or whatever. There's like all the scheming going on. And we don't know the extent of all the scheming at this point as the reader. And we like think he gets stabbed, not just his like shirt or whatever. I was about to have a meltdown.
Me too. I was like, but here's the thing. I'm so convinced that in the next book, we're going to have a Riddick like death arc because now he's so important to us and he is so special. And so I'm like, this is going to be the worst. It's going to hurt my heart so bad. But I was in that space 100%. I was like,
I thought it was going to be dead. Yeah.
I did too.
Well, okay. So on that point, skipping ahead a little bit, in Fourth Wing, we have Liam, right? Was that Fourth Wing?
That was, yeah.
And that's obviously a very traumatic death to a lot of the readers.
One of the most I've ever cried in a book ever.
So in Onyx Storm, we have Quinn, right? Isn't that who died?
Yeah. I love the question.
So I guess, tell me how you feel about Quinn dying.
That was actually one of the notes I had to talk about today because I was like, I wish it would have hit me harder. I didn't remember who she was. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I got confused for a little bit because then I was like, wait, is that Imogen's girlfriend? And I was like, I thought that Imogen liked Garrick. I'm like, I'm so confused right now.
Yes.
And then they're like, no, they're just really good friends. I'm like, oh, I don't really remember them interacting at all throughout any of the other books. Like, I don't remember seeing their friendship at all.
Yeah. However, so like, I loved that at this point we're getting the other point of views. And so we got Imogen's point of view during this point. And watching her die, like I was like, oh, that's really sad.
Right.
However, I saw a TikTok of somebody reenacting it or like the voice of it. Sobbing.
Yeah.
So it didn't hit me hard while I read it. But after the fact, I was like, I'm a mess.
Yeah, but whenever I see anybody else cry, it makes me cry. I'm a very sympathetic crier.
Me too. Me too.
The death that surprisingly hit me harder, which is funny because I can't even remember his name, is the flyer that Kat had like started to have a thing for. And it wasn't even as much about him, but starting even right in the beginning of Onyx Storm, I feel like Kat and Violet have found a much better balance with each other of respect, right? They might not necessarily like each other and they get that and it's fine. There's still some tension. There's still some jealousy, but there is a level of respect that they have and that they try to act more as a team and more as a squad together. And so having seen Kat come like out of her shell a little bit, get more comfortable, like start forming this relationship
and stand up for the writers and the flyers. Yeah.
And like she starts feeling this way towards somebody else and then like immediately he dies. I'm like, oh fuck.
I was so sad. I was like, come on, like you can't give her 1 ounce of happiness.
I know.
That hit me hard too. Gosh, I don't remember his name either.
He wasn't really around for because it was another flyer that was like a third-year flyer or something. And so he came into Quest Squad and then like died pretty quickly into the Quest Squad adventure. So he didn't stick out to me as a character. It was more how he impacted Kat's arc that I just felt so sad for her.
Me too.
That she's like trying to be the bigger person to move on. She's like, well, fuck guys. The universe is telling me I can't.
Hey, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that hit me really hard too, because especially the way that it happened. So let's talk about these, going back a little bit, let's talk about these little adventures that they were having on the Isles. So before we get into that part though, in the very beginning, we've got Jack fucking Barlow in the cell, right?
Yes.
And we start off right after Iron Flame, and Xaden is like going to visit him and like getting all this information.
And so is Violet. Violet goes down and like dangles the little piece of power in front of him too, to try and answer questions.
And then Imogen is wiping his memories like that. So now we know she can wipe Venom memories too.
That's true.
So that'll be interesting. Another point to talk about with the end of the book.
Yeah.
So after that, we're finding like there's all of these like fights happening with the riders and the flyers, and it's just not going well. Chaos. And we basically have this whole mission. Like we have to like go out on our own to save Basgiath, because clearly it's not being done.
When it's not even just Basgiath at this point, right? Because we know in the first half of the book, what's the word I'm looking for? Not borders, the shields.
Like the territories? The guards. No.
The thing that Mira helps with. What's the word I'm looking for? Shields, I guess? No, what's the word I'm looking for?
The wards.
Wards, thank you.
The wards. I'm like, there's a word for it.
There's a word for it. The wards in Aracia are failing because they didn't have the 7th dragon blow on it, right? And so we know that those are on their way down. We know the Poromish, citizens are fleeing their homes and stuff.
Yep.
So yes, Basgiath has kind of been saved with Iron Flame, but there's so much like internal debate on where do you draw the line of like who you're responsible for their safety, because realistically you can't save everyone. And I think that is like such an interesting challenge that the team has in the beginning, because even when they're on their first flight off with Quest Squad and they're like the families of some of the flyers, they're like, well, do we save as many people as we can from this village, or do we do what we were told to do?
Right. I love that you brought up that point, because there were very specific times in the book where I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, if you just let Violet like do what she's supposed to do, they could save the entire continent. Like, come on. I was like, what are you doing? Like, we save them all. It's like that classic situation. Like, you save 5 or do you save them all? Like,
right. Like the trolley problem.
Yes.
But I think what I felt like Rebecca did best in this book, even more so than the other ones with the Venom, is the way that the fight scenes went down. It was so clear that Theophany, is that the way
Theophany, yes.
Is that how I actually say it? That's right. We talked about this at book club.
Stephanie. I call her Heavenly.
Yes. I kept, because of that song, I kept just reading it as Stephanie, because I was thinking of the song with the Stephanie in it. Anyways, Theophany. But it's so clear in the fight scenes with Theophany that she's just literally toying with Violet.
I know.
And I don't think the dramatic difference in their powers were clear until this book, because even when they were fighting at the end of Iron Flame, it felt really well matched. It felt like it was like really a competition, and it was really like just a regular battle. But in this book, it was like, oh, no. We could just take all you out if we wanted to. We're choosing not to because we think we want you for something. And that was like even more like, ooh, spine tingles, sinister.
Exactly, because you thought, or I'm sorry, I thought in the last couple books, like they were just trying to survive. That is not the case.
Oh, God, no.
And in this book, you're right. That was made so clear. They have got strategy. They have people that they want. They are going to do anything in their power to get the other types of powers.
But the thing that I also noticed, okay, so now I got to pull up what the exact quote was, is that it's like, I didn't realize there was so much competition between Venom leaders to get to Violet into this book. So you kind of get the impression until now that they're all one foe, right? They're all like together.
It's like one nation against the other.
Right. But when Theophany first meets Violet on the battlefield in this book.
Yes.
And she says, you will remember that I let you live today and choose me, not Berwyn, as your teacher. So that tells us two things, which is one, you can kind of choose which sage or Maven you're sort of going to follow. So while we know there's an innate, you can't hurt the person who like first helps you kind of thing. So we see that with Xaden.
Yes.
you also know there must be some matter of choice in that. But also, too, the fact that there's competition between them. So they're not just all trying to get Violet to send them towards the same leader. Like, there's inner fighting in there, which I think leaves like a nice hole for Xaden to now come in and maybe like break, really fuck shit up.
Literally. Yeah. Literally. And remember, I think it was even our fourth wing theories where we were like, what is the structure of the Venom? Yeah. Like, there has to be more politics. There has to be more going on there that we just don't see. That's really interesting. Yeah. And so another quote that I have that I think was during the same fight. So Theophany says, "You brought the wrong brother. Bernwyn will be disappointed."
I think that's a different fight.
Is it a different fight?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one was only like from page 100.
Oh,
I think that's a lot further in the book.
That was a lot further in the book. But you brought up a theory earlier, or you were going to bring up a theory earlier, and I think it was talking about the brothers. Maybe, about how I thought that there was a different connection between Xaden and Brody.
Oh, yeah. Bodhi? Yeah. Well, and I feel it. So, as a side note, let's talk about the interview that Yarros did, because she hints pretty clearly in that the only records that we have of dragon and riders are because the riders are passing names to the scribes.
Yes.
So there's like a couple layers of deceit that could be happening here. Like, the dragons could not be giving their real names, which might mean that they're linking up with descendants in the same line on purpose.
Yeah.
Or it could be that the dragon is maybe telling their rider to lie and give the wrong name to the scribe. But either way, it does reaffirm when we were doing this, like, well, why did everyone think that Xaden's
grandfather was like
his
great
uncle or something? Right.
Yes.
And so now that kind of answered that. So to your point, that might be more widespread than just Xaden.
Exactly. And on that point, Theophany says during some fight, she goes, "You brought the wrong brother. Berwyn will be disappointed." And Xaden goes, "Berwyn, ... And Theophany says, "Yes, hence the term brother." Do you think that the sage was looking for Brennan? Because the sage is Naelin.
Maybe.
So that's a theory that I've seen going around where Theophany was saying, "Oh man, I was going to kill off Brennan because it's going to hurt the sage."
Right.
And it's going to, like, that turmoil that we were just talking about is going to be like thickened between them.
Yeah. No, I definitely can see. There's definitely some things over like in that direction that I have no idea which direction I think it's going to go.
And so many possibilities.
And we've definitely talked about Naelin, like maybe being Venom and not being dead.
Yes.
And we don't see Berwyn at all in this book,
no,
right?
We don't.
Or like really any of the other leaders besides Theophany, who seems to be middle management at best.
Yes, absolutely.
So we don't even know, like, is the sage a guy? We're going to assume he is. I think that they maybe use a pronoun he somewhere. But I don't even actually know that they make that super clear. Like,
you're right. Yeah.
They leave a lot of it really open of like who's in charge.
And that's the first time that we hear the name.
Right.
And Xaden was like, "Oh my gosh." So I wonder now that Xaden's in it.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I know who this is now."
He's going to be tracking down Berwyn, trying to figure out what's going on.
I think so too, because that's his sage that he's technically under.
Yeah.
These are all my assumptions. But I'm like, that's going to be really interesting, which brings Violet into a different level, I guess. Like, they're going to try to get Violet anyway, because if it is Naelin and he's going to try to get Brennan, like, Brennan's going to be a huge chess piece in the next book.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny because even in this one, while they sort of want Xaden, they make it clear multiple times that it's never really about Xaden. It's all about Violet.
Yes.
So even though they say that she's kind of a way to like pull his strings, the intent is always to bring her over.
Yes.
And they, even when they're fighting, they're like, no, we can't hurt her. We want the lightning wielder. We want that one.
Yep.
And he's just kind of a piece that comes with it. Like, for as powerful as he is,
exactly,
they're never directly interested in him. It's like a lot more about her.
Which
subtly.
Is wild, because in Fourth Wing, they were talking about how you have the Shadow Wielder and you have the Lightning Wielder, and both are only seated in one generation.
Yes.
And so shouldn't they want both powers? Like,
yep. I totally agree, because I wrote down those 2 quotes too related to that, because those are things that we're really thinking about. Like right at the beginning of the book, in one of the chapter headers, it says, only once have the 6 most powerful, talking about signets, walked the continent simultaneously, which kind of brings into the question, like, what are the 6, right? We kind of are supposed to assume shadows and lightning are 2 of them.
Yes.
I feel like a truth sayer or something like that might be one of them, but
I agree.
I think that's definitely foreshadowing that either the friends that we already have or some other that we're about to realize, like maybe Auric in his seeing like his prophecies or something, that like this is building out those 6 most powerful. But they also make a comment then, like maybe 50 pages later, that the last time a shadow and lightning wielder fought side by side, they managed to drive the Venin back into the Barrens for a few hundred years. So again, we're having this like cyclical, the shadows and lightning are back again, but not even just that. We're seeing the balance of power, because after Xaden has started to go off the deep end, now he's Venin with shadows. Now we have a first year develop shadows.
That gave me chills.
And it's just blown past and they don't talk about it again.
They don't.
It comes up for like 1 page and then they're like, oh.
I feel like Rebecca Yarros does a lot of that, where she's like, oh yeah, by the way, we're just going to toss this in here real quick.
Right? She's like, I hope you forget.
I know. Well, it's funny because like this whole book was talking about the balance of power. And as soon as you have somebody that's rising through the ranks of the Venin, you need that balance and the power of the other side. And so as soon as we saw that first year, I was like, oh, Xaden is done for. Like he can still wield, but like, damn, that was like the nail in the coffin for me. I was like, he's not coming back from this, because the universe or the gods or the dragons or whoever gives them this power, like, damn.
See, I think I had already felt that way because of their adventure on the Isles, though. Are you ready to talk about the Isles, maybe?
Let's talk about the Isles, yes.
Yes. So Quest Squad, love it.
Can we talk about Quest Squad?
Also, I love how Violet's just like, no, I'm bringing these people and that's it. Like, you have very little say.
Like, she's like, I'm doing this. I have the shimmery dragon. We're doing what we want.
She's like, I have Indarna. That's the one you care about. So you don't really get to say shit.
I love that some of the professors were like, we need to learn more. And she's like, nah.
She's like, no chance. And I love how Xaden pulls rank on it too. He's like, well, you gave me a Duke title. Fine. I'm going to fucking use it.
I'm going to use it. As you should, though. I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
I know. So anyway, so we have Quest Squad assembles. Marvels unite.
Unite.
But they end up traveling south instead of north, because Violet wants to go south to the islands. And also from that interview from Rebecca Yarros, I heard that she wanted to have the islands on there, but the like art people thought it was too spoilery.
Yeah.
So it was a little hard because I like didn't really have any vision of where they were.
Same here. For me, I was just like picturing like they were still on the continent. Like I wasn't even.
I mean, I was imagining like the Caribbean, where there's like a lot of islands fairly close to each other. I was like imagining that. Like they spun off the bottom of Florida and they were just in the Caribbean. Those were the type of islands I was imagining.
Yeah, me too. Like it didn't seem like far out.
Yeah.
I will be excited to see the Isles though in the next book.
Yeah.
But I did see that interview too where she was like, it's too spoilery. Like I wanted to put it in there. I'm glad it wasn't though.
Yeah.
I wish it would have at like the end of the book though.
Right. I know, except that I kind of get it because like you don't want people to flip through and then be like, ooh, what's that?
Yeah, because we had no idea what was going to happen. So basically we're like, on this quest to find different items and whatnot, and
so the Isles.
Yes.
So they went to 4 or 5 of them maybe.
Yes.
And it was an interesting mix of the official reason they're there is to kind of try and gather more armies for the fight, right? The unofficial reasons are they're sort of tracking where Violet's dad had been before, or where there was information that he was researching about Feathertails and other things that they aren't really sure what's going on. And obviously looking for the other Irids, looking for Andarna's family. So it really was like a multi-piece thing of why they're there. They're like, we're just going to show up and see what we find.
And it all felt similar and different at the same time. Like
same, but different.
Right, exactly. I was like, okay, we're on a quest. Okay, they won. Good job.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Because I think that wasn't the first one to go meet with the, there was the Panthers that jumped on the table.
I don't think that was the first one. I think the first one was I guess what I was remembering was the first one was the bookkeeper.
Oh,
because it started less aggressive and
then it
got progressively more aggressive. So it was like on the first island, they met with like the shopkeepers who were holding on to something for Violet. And Mira's kind of pissed because
she's like, why was that for you?
Yeah, she's not supposed to see it. But on the flip side, Mira knows information from Grandma and Grandpa that Violet doesn't know.
Yeah, what was that?
We'll get back to that. I think we'll talk about that later. But so that was like kind of the first island. We're all warming up, right? Yes. Everybody's kind of scared of the dragons. Clear that they're not super around.
Yes. And there's not supposed to be any magic on the Isles.
Right.
And so that means that the dragons can't communicate with each other. They're having a really hard time communicating with their riders. And
Violet is the only one that can.
Yes.
And we're going to assume because of Androna.
Yes.
So I think the second island might be the one that you're talking about. Actually, the second island? No, yeah, I kind of think there was. I think the second island is maybe when they first see the Earids and they're like, yeah, fuck you guys. And then they like fly away.
No, because that was the last one.
Oh, okay. But I feel like there was something before because it's the same island that has the slap and the Panthers at dinner, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So which I'm gonna say thank you to the slap.
I know. Oh my god, that was so funny. But so the way that I pictured it when they all went to dinner, and basically what was happening at that point is Halden, who rode there in a basket.
I was just imagining like a hot air balloon basket just hanging down below the dragons, just bouncing around.
I know. It was so fun with a little lid on top and everything. For me, it was more of like a picnic basket.
Oh my god,
that is so funny. But basically, he was like, "Yeah, I can speak with you guys," and so here I am. This is why I'm here. And then Arik steps up and he's like, God damn it. Actually, I'm fluid. And so he steps in. But during all this, Halden's like speaking up to like the king or whatever. He was like the higher up of this isle. And so then they take him hostage because he was trying to steal something off the isle. And then we're sitting at dinner and he's like, well, my Panthers could eat him if they wanted to. And Xaden and Violet have to step in and they're like, please don't. Like, we really want to help you. Like, we are not associated with him. I feel like that was the first time that we really get like Halden and Arik and the dynamic between them and how Arik is like, gosh, I guess I have to step up again for you. Like, you really aren't going to be a great ruler.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that had already happened a little bit though before they even left on Quest Squad because Arik wasn't supposed to be on it. And he was like, well, he's like, I don't trust Halden to be an emissary for us because he's going to be combative.
And so looking back.
Right. So I feel like we already had seen that coming a little bit even from that. But yeah, I agree. But even going back then earlier to their first arrival and everybody's all excited in the stands. And so this must be the island of luck, whatever, Zinhal.
I think that was like the fourth one. Because before that, we have where they show up and Xaden's mom is there.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. There was a lot of islands along the
way.
There
really were. And they weren't super memorable. And so they're really easy to get mixed up.
I thought that Xaden's mom was towards the end because I thought that was the one where they tried to poison him.
That was. And then the Earids were after that. Because they had to escape because they had to escape they had to escape them and then they left and then they went to the next isle and they were trying to find a place to put so it was Xaden's mom and then they went to the Isle of Luck and that's where they're like thank you and then Kat's boyfriend whatever dies and then they were like we have to go find somewhere to bury him. They go to that random isle and they try to bury him there and the Earids show up. Oh,
I thought dinner was on the same island as the events. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was separate because they were trying to flee and they were like, what's going to show up for us here? So that's what happened.
Yeah.
But then, so when we show up at the Isle and Xaden's mom is there, how did you react to that?
Dude, I was so mad.
I was too.
And especially when she's got her like little kids, her other two little boys like running around or whatever. And she's like, oh, one big happy family over here. She's like, well, I did my duty. I had you. I hung out for 10 years. I did what I needed to.
That to me broke my heart so bad.
Yeah.
I could not imagine. And I'm not a mom. So even worse, like if I couldn't even imagine, like really just like, what? I thought we were going to learn more behind it, and we just didn't really.
Right. Well, because then her husband tries to poison everybody, right? And luckily Violet's just smart enough to get around that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that was super fucked. I felt so bad because I had a good feeling that his mom was going to come back into it in this book, but I thought it was going to be more significant than just like, oh yeah, she just moved on and has an entire separate life from you.
Yeah. I really thought that there was going to be some sort of like reconciliation between them, and there just wasn't. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the points where I was like, okay, I needed more from that.
Yeah, I think kind of like we were just talking about, just the islands all kind of blurred together a little bit.
They did.
So it did feel a little repetitive, even if what they were trying to overcome was different on every island.
Yeah, like I remember like the specific things. I think the order was like mixed up on like when it all happened.
For sure. I am curious if Zinhal, is that the god of luck, right?
I believe so.
And so the items that everybody got besides broccoli. Oh my god. First, can we talk about the cute little kitty just hanging out?
That was so funny.
Again, a nice moment of like levity in a somewhat serious situation.
Well, and then in her interviews too, apparently everybody was like, what about broccoli? And she's like, the cat? She's like, what? She's like, I had no idea that this was going to be like.
Everyone was going to love broccoli.
Yeah, broccoli's a sensation, okay? Right. Everybody was so worried about it.
So we've got broccoli. We had the slap. We had the broken compass.
Yeah.
Broken. Mm-hmm. That Violet has. So I'm still not sold that it's just broken. Like, I wonder if there's going to be like it leads points to Xaden or something, whatever. Yep. Like that's going to mean something else. Xaden got a box of some sort, right?
Yeah.
And
it was like a glass empty box.
Yeah. And then we have the flyer that gets shot with an arrow.
And I had to say thank you.
Yeah, I had to say thank you. But I'm trying to remember, was that all of the gifts?
I think so. I can't think of any of the other ones off the top of my head.
So I'm just, I don't wonder if any of that is going to come back at all, or if it really was just random.
The imagery to me too, when they're like, okay, they have come off of all of these other isles and they're like, we have run for our lives. We have like tried to like communicate with everybody. Like this is not going great. Right. And then they get to this isle and everybody's like in the stands and they're cheering and they're so excited and they're like, oh my God, yes. Out by it a little bit. They're like, we're so excited to have you here. They land and it is like, what is this? And then the flyer dies.
And it's like so out of nowhere.
So out of nowhere. Like nobody knew it was going to happen. And then it just like, they like turn their heads and they're like, oh.
Just the arrow just sticking out of him.
Yeah. That imagery for me was so heavy.
And it was such a quick turnaround from the slap. It was like the craziest part. So you're like laughing at all these goofy, like, stupid little presents. So and then there's that.
Oh, fuck. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then that's where I really got like Kat was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like this sucks. I don't want to be in this. Like, oh, that was so sad.
Poor Kat.
I know. Poor Kat.
Never thought I would say that, but poor Kat.
Literally, I didn't hate her in the last book. I thought she was kind of like comedic relief a little bit because I was like, oh yeah, I get it. But like at the same time, like she really is just like a woman out here fighting for like something that she loves, and she finally found something.
And then they take it away. Oh, okay. But speaking of changing of feelings on characters, tell me about your journey with your feelings towards Dane.
Well, I knew he was going to have an arc, right?
Yes,
I thought it was going to be with Violet. I am very surprised, happily surprised, that it ended up being with Sloane.
I mean, we haven't seen too much yet.
No.
But the gods don't I know it. Like, no, I'm going to hurt you. Gods don't I know it.
I'm sorry. Eyes
Swoon.
on me?
Eyes on me.
Oh my God.
It's like, I don't coddle first years anymore. Like, yes,
Thank
Dane.
you, sir.
He's just a young guy who trusted his dad too much. Like, people really hated him so much. But, I mean, he didn't mean to be mean. He just didn't know better. And
he was doing what he thought was right.
Yeah.
And Violet said, no, that's not what you should do. And he changed. Here's the thing, though. Here's the biggest thing. Instead of doing the same exact thing with a new woman, he's changing.
He is.
You can't hate him for that.
I cannot wait to see more Sloane and Dane. Thank God. Because Sloan is so bratty, and he's
Maybe
just such a brat tainer.
I was gonna say, maybe he needed that. Like,
I mean, Violet was bratty too, but like in a different way. But I feel like Sloane's brattiness is gonna be just perfect.
I think so too.
I'm so excited.
Oh! So yes, that completely changed my mind on Dane. I think because we were also talking about it at book club a lot, that like, you're right, like so many people still hate him and like don't want that for him, and I'm like, no, like he's been helping, he's been in the group, he's been in the loop with everything, like he deserves some happiness too, guys.
Yeah, I know. I was happy to see that going that direction for him.
Me too. I hope it continues. I hope it's not like stunted at any point.
No. I feel like he needs a more complete arc, so there's no way that we won't get at least a little bit of that.
I agree. Especially because like now him and Violet seem like actual friends.
Yeah, like on good terms.
Yeah, so I'm like really hoping.
Well, yeah, I mean, Dane even helps steal things from his dad's office for Violet. So I think that was another really good line in the sand for us as readers to see that like Dane really has 100% come over to support Violet and the rebellion, you know?
Well, and then I don't remember when in the book. See, timeline in this book was like kind of sketchy for me. When they were going to, I think it was Promiel and it was Kat's family, and he was like, I need these items. And then they go to that like abandoned city. And Theophany shows up.
But then one of the other like riders or something like kind of like freaks out and accidentally lights something on fire and like draws a bunch of people to them, right? Oh my God. And then dies, right?
So like literally they were having all of these like, I think that might have even been before the Isles.
It is before the Isles, yeah.
Because they were like, well, we'll help you if you get these items for me. And she's like, okay, guys, I guess we'll like take a quest squad over and see if this is the right squad. And she took the flyer, and the flyer, because they weren't integrated at this point, they were like, we'll take you, but you have to like work with us. And she was so on edge that she just like any little thing, she was like, and then she like threw fire.
Oh, I thought it wasn't the flyer. I thought it was the rider that like leaders had forced to come with the quest squad, that like Violet didn't want them there because wasn't it it starts with an A. I swear her name started with an A, and it was like someone who Violet had fought with like early in her time at Basgiath. But yes, I know what you're talking about, because I don't think it was a flyer. I actually think
it was a rider.
I think it was a rider who had fire.
Yes, because she would just like
and like blew shit up and just like totally fucked it up for everybody. Yeah. Because didn't they kill one of the like chaperones or like teachers or something too? Yes. On accident, obviously. But that was wild.
That was wild.
Kind of as a reminder that even all of these little quests they're doing all have a lot of risk associated with them.
Exactly. Well, and then she goes to get the gem and it's drained. And Theophany was like, guess what? I knew you were coming. And that was, I think that was the first time that we see like Theophany is one step ahead all the time. So I'm like, either somebody is in the quadrants telling the Vedden the information,
which we think is true.
Yes.
Because we hear that from Jack. We hear that the initiates and the SMs can feel each other around. They like know that they're there, but they're like, we would never know. I think I even have a quote saved from it, but they're like, we would never know if a sage or a Maven was around, but they would know we're here. And so I think that was definitely subtle hinting that there must be a sage or Maven that's like integrated somewhere on site, except that they look so visually different that I don't understand.
That they can't integrate with everybody else. But like it seems like they are.
Right. But we also have seen through Xaden that you can still use your original signet even when you're a Venin. Yeah. Which kind of made me wonder if like some type of like visual shielding kind of things, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like if that's a thing, and if maybe there's like some Sage or Maven that's around that's like making themselves look different
to like to exist them around. Or
like, like a glamour.
Ooh. That's really interesting.
Because we haven't really seen anybody with that ability yet, right?
No, we haven't.
But that feels like that would be an ability that would fit in this.
I haven't heard it either, and I like that. Oh my gosh. I would, because we know there's someone. There's
got to be someone in there.
Well, because people are turning in the wards.
Right. And so
it doesn't make sense.
Someone is showing them how to do that or telling them to do that.
Yep. And we find out when Jack, in the very first, 50 pages of the book, we see that Jack,
No, keep talking. I'm just popping bottles over here.
More mimosas. We see when Jack is there, and he's still in the dungeon, and Xaden comes down, and he goes, well, I felt that there were other people down here.
Yeah.
And Violet sees the scribe who isn't the scribe.
Yes.
And she boom, and she gets him. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, how did she know? They could be there and nobody else would know unless you actually have that sense.
Right? They could be everywhere. Hidden. Yes. I don't know. So that was really crazy. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. They're integrated and we don't even know. Because they're, at some point, in the beginning of the book, too, they say that, we could turn in the words, you guys would never even know.
Yes. Pretty scary.
Pretty sketchy. And, I mean, we have Xaden in the beginning of the book, and nobody knows. But Violet, Garrick,
Imogen.
I think those are the only 3 that know.
Yeah, maybe.
Woo! We were both due for another mimosa.
Guess I should have given you guys a little warning on that one. Sorry. I opened them quietly.
It was perfect, I think. Hell yeah. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
That was better. Okay, there we go.
Oh, man.
I love it. Okay, so Venin in the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And in Bisgayeth, we have questioned the wards so much. Why are people turning in the wards? Why are they able to stay Venin in the wards? It still doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Another thing that we did learn about Venin, though.
Yeah.
Violet's second signet of dream walking.
Did you see it coming literally at all?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it as an option, but
I felt like it was lower on our tier.
Just because we thought it sounded lame. We were because it did seem, because I think both of us recognized that it was sketch the way that the dream went when it was clearly Xaden's dream. Right. And we were like, that seemed like Xaden's dream, but we didn't know if he was pushing it in her mind or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little underwhelming. But we do know that she can dream walk into Venin dreams now because she does it into Xaden's.
Yep.
So, and
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah.
So, holy cow. Okay.
So, I don't know if that'll be relevant at all, but since we're clearly just the very tip of the iceberg is what we're looking at right now of being able to move into dreams. But in one of the dreams with Xaden, he makes a comment that the trajectory of the dream is different when she's there versus all of the other times that he has that nightmare. So we know that she, by existing there in his dream, changes it. So again, it just brings up some questions of how that might be used in future books now, where we know that she can go into dreams and change them or influence them in some way. And we know that she can go into Venin's dreams. So, we talked about at book club, is there going to be some way that she's going to be able to plant ideas with people to make them feel like they're their own ideas? Right.
And Rebecca Yarros even said in an interview, she's only 10% developed into this. And so it's I wonder where that's going to go, because she can touch people. And so, is she going to be able to kill people?
Right. Well, because doesn't she wake up one time from a dream with, the sage or whatever, and there's, bruises, or there was, something. Yes. There was something physical on her. He was
choking her, and she wasn't able to breathe, and Xaden was trying to wake her up.
Yeah.
And she's like, I couldn't breathe. He goes, that was my dream. That's when they find out. He goes, what happened? And she's, he's like, that's my dream.
Yeah.
He's like, I thought I felt you there, but...
So that's how we know it can be real. So we're like, okay, what is she going to be able to do while dream walking? Or is that how she's going to be able to reach Xaden now that they're separated? Or is there a proximity piece to that? We just don't really know.
Too is the Irids, which we'll get back into that whole conversation, but the Irids are you gave her the most powerful thing. Hold up.
Right?
I thought it was kind of lame at first.
Wait a minute. Sorry, go
Where
ahead.
I think, hold up. Hey.
No. I have no idea what you're talking about now. Sorry.
I would have to look up the song.
You're good.
Anyway, so I feel they were you gave her the most powerful thing, but we don't. That seemed kind of lame.
Right?
Tell me more.
That's what I'm there's got to be more that she's going to be able to do with that makes it the most powerful thing.
Exactly. I'm still, even in this book, they were like, oh yeah, you wield power. Tell me more. I need to see more of it.
Yeah. I thought that, I was really sure that in this book, we would see her use the like wielding power as more than just as lightning, because in the last book, in Iron Flame, there's a comment that you're like wielding lightning, so that's like what feels most natural to you or something. But like it indicates that there's other ways that she would be able to wield like pure energy.
Right.
And it still didn't happen in this one. So I still feel like it's coming.
Me too.
But yeah, I don't know.
The fact that she like has these two really powerful signets, I'm like, okay, we're not really far into either of her signets. And so I'm like, I just know that she is going to like get, I don't even know. I'm like at a loss for words. There's going to be so much more happening with her signets that we even like see yet.
And it's going to be interesting to see, because everyone else keeps talking about how powerful they are or how much potential there is. And that's clearly part of why the Venin want her specifically, is because of her particular signet. So I think as we see them develop, we're probably going to get a better sense for why they want her so much.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's pause there.
Yes.
We will have lots more conversations. So tune in.
We haven't talked about the Irids very much.
Yep.
We haven't talked about like, there's a lot about Theophany we didn't talk about.
Who the brother is.
We haven't talked about who the brother is. We haven't talked about
the battles.
The dedication to the different temple.
Stay tuned.
There's a lot more for part 2.
Heck yeah.
So hopefully we'll see you next week.
All right. We'll see you next week, guys.